And we are live. Yes, we're live on Let's Think Podcast. Yes. What is it? What is it today? What is it today? Thursday? Wednesday? What is it? Everybody don't forget to shop Fez Dealer. Get your Islamic urban experience at Fez Dealer. You see the intro. Google Fez Dealer, and he got you. First, allow me to rise, giving all thanks and perfect praise unto Allah. Highest honors to his holy prophet. Honors to the forerunner Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Honors to the Moorish Temple of America. Honors to my leadership, Brother L. Portis L. Honors to the Grand Sheikhs, M. Portis L. Honors to the staff. Honors to all leadership, past, present, and future. Honors to my guests. Honors to my co-hosts. And honors to all participating in the comprehensive program of uplifting fallen humanity. And this is Let's Think Podcast.
Yes, it is.
Let's get it.
How the brothers?
All is well.
I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for the show because I love learning new things. And our brother Ishmael Bey, this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. It's always good to see the family. It's always good to see the family. Always good to see the brothers.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, excuse me, man. I'm kind of pumped up, man. I was out there, doing a little fisticuffs, doing the thing, training the mind and body. So I'm kind of amped up right now, man. Excuse me if I'm all off. Yeah, we in here now. McGriffell, what's up, man?
Islam, saving lives one body at a time, Muslim.
Come on, bro.
Lives one body at a time.
Come on.
That's it, bro. Praise be to Allah. Ishmael Bey, it's been a minute since you've been on here, man. Good to have you back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's always good to be amongst the family. Always good to see my brother, Sharif Anael-Bey, and just to see the family. It's always good to be home. It's home.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's Absolutely. Good to see you, brother. It's always good to see and hear from you, brother.
It's exciting. I don't know how much you all, or definitely the audience, knows about our history, my history with Brother Ishmael. We go back. You understand? Back. Like I missed my stop on the A train back. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah. We call that sandbox back.
Yeah, we've been through some things as it relates to this movement. I'm telling you, a lot of what you hear people talking about today, these are things that not only did we live during the contemporary, in many cases we were physically there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We were physically there for a lot of these things. You see? So, it's for me, it's a blessing to see, how we've all grown during that time. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy.
And I think grown is a good term to use.
Yeah.
When I look at Sharif, I'm talking about somebody who I've shared stages from college campuses to courtrooms, right?
For real.
I mean, and that's not just a bar. That's real life. Right? When you've been on college campuses and debated the professors and the doctors up on their stages in their forums and still being able to take it to the courtroom 30 plus years ago, that's somebody who you've grown and evolved with, and to see him still alive and see the growth, right? You see the growth of your brother. It's powerful.
On a previous show, we did a show called what was the name of the show? Gain of Function. And you know what it was about? It was about the research we did back in the early 90s on HIV, bro.
Strecker.
Yep, he was there. Ishmael was there. Listen, we challenged the entire biology department of Syracuse University.
Correct.
You hear what I'm telling you?
Hey, listen, bro. See.
No internet.
See. No internet. That's right.
Hey, yo, brother, that's what I was getting ready to say. That's different than challenging a person on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely different.
Especially when you See, let me say something, and I want to say this right because
Yes.
for some reason I get inboxes like I'm a scholar.
You are.
Yeah,
Like, no,
you are.
wait, listen.
Yes, sir.
But YouTube, bro, YouTube, listen. But what I'm saying is, I don't call myself a scholar because that's not what I present myself to be.
Mm.
That you know, I'm your brother, bro. You know what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
saying?
Yes,
Share
sir.
information. You know what I'm saying? I haven't been to any one school, and I don't have any degrees. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everything I've learned from wonderful souls that Allah placed in my path, and through
Mm.
His holy prophet. You know what I'm saying? I have walked out of the darkness into the marvelous light.
Yes, sir.
So I don't place myself in that category. I'm
Mm.
just a brother who has a little bit of something, and if
Yes,
you
sir.
ask me, I'll share it with you.
Praise the Lord.
That's it. But I get questions as if I've made the claim that I'm some type of, you know, wait until we get Dana Marnichi on the show. She's a scholar. You know what I'm
Brother.
saying?
Yeah, through and
See, that's
through,
a,
Yeah.
through and through.
Listen,
you know,
listen.
ask,
In the
Ishmael, ask
particular,
Sharif.
I was just about to say that. In his particular field, this brother Ishmael Bey is a scholar, bro. We're dealing with
Yes.
That's another thing that I'm looking forward to touching on too in this presentation is a responsible look at the Moorish / African / native connection. It
Yes,
doesn't
sir.
have to be either or.
Correct.
It doesn't.
You know what
How
I'm
about
saying?
both ends? How about
Oh,
both
bro.
ends?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And listen, Ishmael, I just want to let everybody know as you coming in, I see y'all coming in. Peace to the chat. Islam, we got Danielle Churchill, peace. Islam, we got Nicholas Bay, peace. Islam, we got HG F9777 977, peace, brother. We got Ryan C. Peace. We in here. We in here. We
Yes,
just
sir.
preparing. We heating up. You know, we dialogue. That's what we do on Let's Think podcast. We dialogue before we get to the business, you know, and we give you a dialogue that you can enjoy.
That's
You
a
know what I
fact.
mean? You can
Sure.
enjoy this. Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
right.
sir. Yeah. Oh, McGriff in the chat and he in the building. Yeah. That's how we do. Question about the Moors. Hey, listen, do me a favor. Everybody super chat your questions. We'll deal with them. We're
Absolutely.
going to deal with them, right? But show some
Absolutely.
support to the channel. You know what I'm saying? That's how we ask for support. You got an important question you want to ask, super chat it. We'll stop the presentation and deal with your question.
For
And,
sure.
you know, but we're going to deal with this one right quick, though. Just because you posted one right there before I said anything. We're going to go ahead and deal with it, and then we're going to start the show. Because, you know, our brother got things. All right. We got a question about the Moors. Can you choose to be a Moor, or do you have to have bloodline ties?
Ooh, let's talk about it. All right. Can you
Oh
choose
yeah.
Well, see, we have again, context is king. Context is king. Okay. So
Let's go.
let's take, for instance, myself, and let's take my brother Ishmael, right? My brother Ishmael Bey's area of expertise in this realm leans more towards ethnology, right? Ethnography and ethnology, right? Ours or mine in the Moorish Science of America, right? Prophet Ali says, "What is your nationality?" Well, nationality has connections to ethnology, but it in and of itself is socio-political. It's not ethnic. You see what I'm saying? And so, because of that, it's broad. There's a broader scope to socio-political identification as opposed to ethnological or ethnic identification. See what I'm saying? That so from an ethnic perspective, the brother's statement about blood tie and culture would be more correct, right? But from a social-political perspective, it's different and broader.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And then we get both hands.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. There is where, see, I'm glad you brought that up, bro, because a lot of times we don't contextualize the conversation. When we say we hear the term Moor, we hear the term Moorish, we hear the term Moorish American. We don't properly contextualize it so we can have a responsible conversation where that's fruitful. You know what I mean?
When it comes to bloodline, right?
Yes.
I want to give this analogy.
Yes.
When it comes to bloodline, you and your wife might not be the same bloodline, right?
Ooh.
But no one can tell you that y'all not one, and she's not an Anael-Bey.
That's fact.
Nobody can tell that.
That's
and
right.
The children are what? Products and fruit and produce of that.
Of that union.
Proof
Right.
that. Right?
You go.
So where do we get, I'm gonna say this. Some people so smart, they dumb.
Yes.
So smart, they're stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that disrespectful in a condescending manner, but
right.
What I'm saying is sometimes you take a simple thing.
Yes.
And you make it so difficult that it's virtually impossible for a person to even put their grips around it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But we're taught that this is a simple faith.
Islam is a simple faith, brother. That's fact.
So hey, I hope we Ishmael Bey, test that question, Ishmael.
Yeah, well, I wanted to expand it just a little bit more and even deal with the term Moorish science.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
You were just stating before, quote unquote, I'm not a scholar, although you are, but you're also a scientist.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Your science of what you're able to create comes from your creativity as creating a platform, the visual alchemy, the spirit that you move in, the unity from your being is a science. We're obligated to be scientists, and we all have specialties.
Yes.
If I have a question about the Moorish Science Temple, I defer to the experts that have been groomed into that, and I humble myself in order to learn that. There has never, ever, ever been a major move that I've made in any capacity,
right,
dealing with the Moorish history in or out without me going and deferring to people. I go and have a sit down to them. I go to them. Where are you at? And we sit down and I ask the questions about, is this the right move, or what do you think about this? These are people that I seek counsel.
Yes, sir.
Because that's not my expertise, or they will defer to me on, well, I got a question about this indigenous side over here.
Yes.
And they will defer it to my expertise in that science that I'm perfecting. Dr. Wesley Muhammad says it's not about your degree, you being a doctor, it's about your methodology.
Bro.
Right?
That's it.
Now you can balance and get both.
Right.
You can be tight, get your degree, but it isn't measured by your degree. It's measured by is it tight?
Right.
We got to remember that.
That's right. That's right, brother. And superior wisdom demands submission. See, that's also scholarship as well.
Facts.
Right? We don't want to be guilty of or fall victim to confirmation bias.
Facts.
Because that's anti-scholarly. It's what I want it to be, and I'm only going to look at stuff that agrees with what I want it to be. That's not scholarly.
Nope.
Right.
Bro.
Yeah.
I want to say something. I just watched the video, right? It's like I wanted to train myself to listen. And that's how you train yourself to listen.
Isn't that something?
When you are listening to and giving your attention to something that you do not agree with.
Come on, brother. Yeah.
But you're doing it from an unbiased standpoint, not looking for an opportunity to interject or, you know, do your own response. It's like, no, I'm
Right.
actually listening to this so I can gain an understanding and a perspective of their perspective.
Right.
Because we can't say what anyone is saying unless you have that.
There you go.
I can't
Correct.
say Brother Sharif Anael-Bey meant this if I haven't contextualized what he's saying.
There you go, brother. There you go. There you go.
You know, so
yeah, that's what we have to do, brother. You know, and again, I don't know if other people know this, but I'm gonna say it publicly now, like almost 10 years later. Right? So Ali's men, you know, you guys know, you already know, right? The debate with Brother Reggie 2016, right? So we had some other assistants too. It wasn't just Ali's men. It was Amon Rosquad, Brother Ishmael Bey. Just letting people know. Right? And I even bring that up because, to your point, brother, we began, or at least me personally, but I know my brothers did too, but me personally, when considering the debate, I began by studying him. That's how I began. I'm like, what's his points? What's his strong points? What's his weak points? Where's his direction? What's he stand for? I studied all of that. That's how I began.
But that's war.
That's a good game of chess right there.
That's war.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's a good game.
The first thing you got to do in war is identify your opposition.
Come on, bro.
Right.
Come on, bro. Yeah.
That's the first thing you got to do. If you don't do that, bro, it ain't no war.
Bro,
you just pray.
You playing blind pool at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once you know your adversary, you know his objectives. Now you can effectively plan strategy.
This is why this is important. There's a part of the history that gets obscured. That's what brings us to this topic to the public, right?
Right.
There's important cases that need to be brought out so that people can then measure, how are you battling in the courtroom? Why are these interpretations being put out in the public?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. Donald Trump last week said that the 14th Amendment was for
the children of slaves,
the babies of slaves. He kept saying the babies of slaves. The babies of slaves. That's offensive, first of all, because when somebody's calling you a baby, he's saying he's your daddy.
Straight like that.
When you look at a lot of those native engagements with the white man, they were calling him our great white father.
Yes.
It's very paternalistic when you're calling a white man my great white father. And he's calling you his red son.
Oof.
So when somebody's calling you a slave baby and you're answering to that, he's sonning you by default.
Literally.
So that's why we need to bring out important topics like this. 14th Amendment, 13th Amendment. Yeah.
So let me just say this real quick, brother, man. Our brother Ishmael Bey came up with which is the major topic of this discussion, right? And it's so timely because it pulls in contemporary issues that are burning right now. 14th birthright citizenship, 14th Amendment, how it relates to us, the current presidential administration, what's actually happening, regardless of what they're saying is happening, and how we can take an active part in protecting ourselves. This case is absolutely important, people. Please tune in. Listen, share this with some other people. Need to hear this. They do.
Absolutely. Please hit the like button too.
Absolutely.
When y'all let it, hit the like button. Hit the like button. Share. I don't know. I've shared it. I don't know.
I have too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it reached everyone,
like and share for sure.
Each one of you that like and share, it gets us further into the algorithm, so somebody can come hear this important and profound information.
That's right.
You know, share to make your people aware. Do that.
Real talk.
Absolutely.
I did post up in the back chat the article that we're kind of centering the conversation around. If you'd like to pull it up, we can kind of go over it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Take your time.
Pulling it up, brother man?
Yes, sir. I'm pulling it up right now.
And anybody can go and see it live on their own. You can go to firsttribenation.com. Again, firsttribenation.com. And the name of the article is Why Marguerite Scipion's Case is Ignored for Winning While Dred Scott is Center Stage for Losing. It's a very important question that we're asking. So let's unpack it and kind of bring it out a little bit. Why is one case known for losing and one is being obscured and erased for winning?
Yes. Wow.
So load on law.
All right, we're just gonna get this thing to sharing right quick.
And yeah, you guys can, you're allowed to ask the obvious questions, like who in the world is Marguerite Scipio?
I was about to ask that next.
Right.
Let's start with that.
Hey, listen, I've been over here Googling, like that's why I've been quiet. Like,
good. And let's unpack that as far as Brother McGriff. What did you find when you put in Marguerite Scypion? What does it tell you? Let's start there.
Well,
what does it tell you?
A Wikipedia joint, so it's all over the place.
Okay. Well, it should give you a synopsis of kind of what's it pertaining to. So what does it tell you?
So let me go a little bit down.
Here's two things while the brother's looking. Two things that when I first heard about it via your article, brother, and just did some surface before I went deeper, just some surface reading. Two things stood out. Number one, it was 41 years before Dred Scott.
Right.
And two, she won.
Right.
How about that?
In Missouri.
In Missouri. Yeah. Same state. Same state, people. As Scott said.
Wow.
So just a little small piece.
This gonna be lit.
It says this decision withstood appeal to the state and the United States Supreme Court in 1838. The case was considered to end Indian slavery in Missouri. Throughout their struggle, her and her sisters argued that their mother was illegally enslaved after 1769 because after the Spanish started ruling the area, the colonial government abolished the Spanish started ruling the area in enslaved after 1769 because after the Spanish started ruling the area, the colonial governor abolished Indian slavery in the Louisiana territory to make regional policy consistent with other Spanish colonies.
Okay.
Good.
Bro, real quick, let's just stop right there for a quick second.
For sure.
Right? Think about what was just said. Right? The Spanish started ruling the area in 1769, Spanish Empire, right?
Yep.
And they abolished, quote unquote, Indian slavery.
Right.
All right. So right off top, what do we have here? We have
what slavery though? What slavery? What slavery?
Indian slavery.
Oh my God!
You starting to see the layers of nuance in this whole thing. So right off top, what do we have here? We have here prior to 1856, 1857, a social narrative that saw people that look like you and me as possibly Native American. You see it? That is not the social narrative we live under today, is it?
No, sir.
But that
not
was that was part of the social narrative then. You catching this? What man? Brother Ish.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What year did the Dawes Rolls come into being?
Well, the Dawes Rolls started being applied in the in the 20th century, as far as the 1900s.
Oh, much later.
Much later.
Which further solidifies this point.
It does. And the reason why is because the 13th Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with the indigenous nations.
Correct.
Okay, so I need to make that clear to the audience. The 13th Amendment has nothing to do with the indigenous nations, to the American Indian. How do you know that? Or why do you say that, Brother Ish?
Okay, yeah.
I say that because if slavery ended in 1865, then you would have no reason to have Indian treaties dealing with slavery in 1866.
That's a fact.
In 1866, you have the 5 slave-owning tribes. They were not civilized. They were the 5 slave-owning tribes. They all had the 1866 treaty. The Creeks had theirs. The Seminoles had every one of those. The Cherokees had an 1866 treaty. The Choctaw, the Chickasaw, right? There would be no need for that if they were already free in 1865.
That's a fact.
Right? But the United States did not have authority to dictate to those Indians how to handle their slaves. So they had to come up with a separate treaty for those individual slave-owning tribes. Okay? 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment have nothing to do with the indigenous populations.
But Brother Ish, can I'm asking this in the form of a question. Would that be because those tribes are not considered part of the United States of America?
That's correct. That's correct, God. That's what it is. And I would like.
Wait a minute. Why?
Yeah, that's gonna be my next question.
Why? Hold up. We can't even. Wait a minute. No, hold up. Let me put my camera on. No. Why? Yeah. That's a question. You know, we can't go no further than that. Why?
Because our brother Ish, this is his area of expertise. He can answer much more detail. But just in the general sense, this was a time period when there were still skirmishes going on between native, confederations and the United States.
Right.
They were considered, right. They were not absorbed into the citizenry or given the ability to do so. Not in mass at that time period.
Can I ask a question with that too? So would it be because of some of the battles that was having with like the Seminole tribes down in Florida and all of that area?
There was a civil war that was taking place, right?
Yes.
And the Indians, as far as those 5 slave-owning tribes, were on the wrong side of history.
Woo!
Right?
Come on now.
Because they were fighting for an institution and they took the L. Now, you took the L. Now the winning side dictates the terms.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they wrote up, there you go, goes the spoils. So we're going to write up this treaty.
Y'all are N-words too.
Yes. and now you have to, these are the rules that you have to follow and abide by in this territory for you to exist.
Hold on. Do you all see just how many myths have been destroyed with just this first 5 minutes of conversation?
Woo! I don't think they thought.
I think I listen. This is for educational purposes. We have to be able to look at the video context and let's see what we're talking about, which will make it so relevant to the topic in the conversation. The video's on the back chat if we can post it up, and let's see why this is so very important. What we're dealing with is Hollywood actor Don Cheadle, who is a descendant of the Chickasaws. He was also a descendant of Chickasaw freedmen. And you will hear why the 13th Amendment did not apply to his family, because they were stateless. They had no nation. And the reason why he was stateless, his family was stateless.
Wow. This
will make it all relevant for you.
Can you pull it up, brother?
Yeah, we finna pull it up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. Hold on.
This is interesting. Because soon as you just said that,
I
so
said stop. Hold on. I said stop. Wait a minute.
yeah, because I was about to ask
Wait a
another
minute.
question.
Yes, sir.
I was
Hold on. We all gonna watch this. We all gonna
Yeah.
watch this. This is something else. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We all gonna get to this. All right. All right. Everybody see it?
Yes, sir.
We see it?
see it.
Is it sharing?
It's
All
out there.
right. All right. Let's go.
What are you most eager to learn about your family? Actor Don Cheadle has never heard anything about his ancestors who lived through the aftermath of slavery. So we searched for clues about his father's side of the family. The paper trail that we uncovered confounded our expectations. Unlike most African Americans who were freed by the end of the Civil War, your ancestors weren't.
They couldn't get it right.
Well,
They just stuck to it.
well, somebody didn't get it right, but it wasn't your ancestors, it was the people who owned them. Take a look at this.
Oh,
This document is an official enrollment card for the Chickasaw freedmen, the former slaves owned by the Chickasaw Nation.
owned by the Chickasaw Nation.
Owned by the Chickasaw Nation. Your ancestors were enslaved by Native Americans. Here's your great-great-grandmother, Mary Kemp,
Huh.
her 11 children, including Bill Cheadle, your great-grandfather, William, and you can father Henderson or Hence Cheadle.
Huh.
You are one of the few African Americans who was not enslaved by white people, enslaved by Native Americans.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Hey, man. Hey. Hey, man.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's
Wait
an
a
elephant in
minute.
the room.
Wait a whoa. 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 Man. Wait a minute.
Yeah. This is again, we've said this a lot on your show. I've said it a lot on other shows. The secret isn't so much, or the secrets aren't so much missing information. That's part of it. But the biggest secret is narrative control.
Yeah.
That's the biggest secret. The biggest secret is who controls the narrative and what narrative are we socialized into, because that shapes our thinking. That's what makes this heavy lifting right here.
Yeah. Agreed.
See? Yeah. It's a different narrative, bro. And the fact, see, what we just witnessed and what Don Cheadle just witnessed here doesn't fit the narrative we grew up under.
This is news to him
It's news to him.
with millions of dollars.
Ain't that something? Ain't that something?
Yo, it's news to me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Especially Chickasaw.
So
Ain't that crazy?
my question is, are they in deserving of reparations because of that?
Well, let's find out how it's described shortly. It's coming up right now. It's going to be the bomb about to be dropped.
Okay.
Let's go. I'm gonna back it up just a little bit.
Okay.
Back it up just a little bit right here.
You are one of the few African Americans who was not enslaved by white people, enslaved by Native
I don't
Americans.
know about that. It's crazy because really you feel like, oh, the two biggest blights on the way this country started, the Native Americans and the Trail of Tears and all those horrible stories of what's happened to the Native people here. And then that's mind-blowing.
Most people don't realize that the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Choctaw, governing entities of the United States. So what did this mean for Don Cheadle's ancestors? When the Civil War ended,
Uh-oh, it froze.
Yep. I can once he comes back, I can post it up on my side.
until
if it's a problem.
1866.
G7, can you pull it back a little bit? Can you pull it back? Because it froze for a minute. Pull it back a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, pull it back a little bit more. A little bit more. Okay.
A little bit more.
Right there.
Right here.
They refused to liberate their slaves.
Everybody wanted to roll with the slavery thing as long as they could.
That's right. They said, come and get them.
Yeah, you gotta take my slave.
You got, yeah.
Pry it from my cold dead hand. I had neither. This is amazing.
The United States government, 6.
Until 1866. Wow.
Forcing them to liberate their slaves and make them citizens. The Chickasaws freed their slaves. They did not offer them citizenship in the Chickasaw Nation.
Are they honorary white people? I mean, what's going on here?
Don, your ancestors were in Indian territory, yet they were neither Chickasaw nor were they Americans. They were people without a country. And
Boom.
Whoa. Whoa.
Without a country.
Boom.
Whoa.
Not only do they get the money off of you, but they just let you go with nothing.
With nothing. They left you stateless.
Stateless.
Without a nation, and reap the benefits of being able to do that. They got rewarded for applying apartheid until this day.
Wow.
Wait a minute.
Wow.
Wait a minute.
Wow. Wow. So Brother Ish,
Yes, sir.
let's take in this case the Chickasaw Nation.
Yes, sir.
They're defeated in a conflict,
Right.
and then they are dictated to how they're going to conduct affairs
Correct.
after which.
Right.
And part of that was those that look like us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, well, yeah,
Well, that's heavy lifting, right?
they're free, but
Mm-hmm.
stateless.
Correct. And the reason why this is relevant today,
What's free about stateless?
Good point. But go ahead.
that is. The reason why this is relevant today is because you have to study the Murphy case in Oklahoma. The Murphy case. It's tied to the 1866 treaty.
Hey,
And with the Murphy case, this was just decided in about 2018. Very recent case. Half of Oklahoma by law is deemed Indian territory, half of the state of Oklahoma,
Correct.
because it's tied to the 1866 treaty and the Murphy case. So in real time, you're seeing how relevant these 1866 treaties are. But this is the problem. These racist natives want to use the 1866 treaty because it was designed for the Black Indian. That was the reason for it, because they couldn't get the 1865 justice, right? So they want to reap the benefits of the 1866 treaty, but they don't want to acknowledge the reason why the 1866 treaty is even relevant.
Wow.
You see that?
This was the show for me, bro. Like
Wow.
This shit.
I know it's heavy.
But no, I just looked it up, and it said these treaties contain majority provision including abolishing slavery within the tribe, granting freed people, former slaves of Native Americans, full tribal citizenship, but they just said they didn't get nothing.
See that? You caught it. You caught it, right?
Yeah. So you saying on paper they are required by law to have it.
Absolutely.
But in all reality, you never even told them about it. Period.
So
which is why Don Cheadle didn't even know their own history. It's obscured.
So we're talking about a contingency of natives that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, a contingency of natives that to this day are still carrying the flag of white supremacy.
Correct. They're rewarded by it by federal funds, hospitalization, casinos, land.
We're seeing all this happen. We've seen
sovereignty.
We saw this happen right here in Syracuse, didn't we?
We did.
It's happening here in South Carolina too.
It does.
Wow.
With the Catawba, they have a casino set up in Shelby, North Carolina, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And they're adding two.
And with Indian tribes have to measure how much of their sovereignty they want to give up in order to reap the benefits on the other side. An example, where we're from in Syracuse, New York, you have the Onondaga Nation.
That's fact.
Right? The Onondaga Nation, if you were in the hood, you just take a straight shot down Salina Street. It'll take you right to the reservation.
Right to the res.
Right. Now, with the Onondaga Nation, they have their own passport.
Yes, they do.
They can go in and out of this country with their own passport.
Yep.
Now, they have sister tribes like the Seneca or the Oneida. They can't do that.
That's right.
Why is that? Because the Onondaga said, we want to maintain as much sovereignty as we can. So all that they're allowed to have is maybe a smoke shop and a bingo hall.
There you go.
Now, if you want to have the casinos like they got, you ain't going to have no passport. What do you want?
Not.
What do you want? So you have to negotiate with this government how much sovereignty rights you really want to have. That's how nuanced and important this is.
But make no mistake, as Brother Ish already knows, you know, the Onondaga res is like third world.
Right. It's impoverished where the other ones reap the benefits of the casino funds. That's true. We'll make a museum here. We're rolling in money there.
That's
it's the same thing here in South Carolina. Just
you know what
30 minutes up the road from me. Same issue.
Wow.
Same issue.
You know what it reminds me of, Mo?
What's that, Sheikh Stephen?
You give up your name for a morsel of bread.
Bruh. Gave up his birthright just to gratify his lower self.
See that? Same principle.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, this is real.
So that's why it's important when you look at that black Indian looking in the camera right there. These were not Africans that were being enslaved. These tribes, where were the Africans coming from? First of all, tell me where the Native Americans were getting their Africans from.
You know that was my next question.
Right.
Yes, let's make it clear. The international slave trade was banned in 1808.
That's a fact.
If there were no slave ships coming from Africa into the United States, again, this is if you look at the first Southern Confederate Constitution, they banned slavery from Africa.
That's right.
So if the slave trade was banned, hold on, bro. Hold on. Let me just cook this part. I'm gonna get to you. If it was banned in the 1808, where did you get your Africans from?
Come on now.
What you'll find is, because I got the names, I got the companies of what they were doing. They were bringing in indigenous populations and people, from South America, correct, into the South in order to enslave them to get those bodies because they couldn't get them from Africa.
You got it,
bro. What is going on right now? What is going on right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing in reverse. Yep.
100%.
Isn't that crazy?
Bro.
Yeah. And again, this is why the Marguerite Sccypion case is so important. Why do I say that? That's important because she and her mother were illegally enslaved. These were indigenous Natchez Indians. Natchez Indians are from Mississippi.
Correct.
They've been there since time immemorial. We're talking about the mound builders.
That's what we're talking
She's
about.
a Natchez Indian. How is Marguerite Sccypion described in the court records? She's described as very dark with hair like a negress, very woolly hair.
Ain't that something?
These are not straight hair people. These are very dark Indians with very woolly hair, unquote.
By today's standards, social standards, she'd be called a black person.
Black.
Absolutely. Anybody very dark with very woolly hair. Absolutely.
That's right, bro.
Man, listen here, man. Listen here. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
This is powerful.
True.
This is powerful, people. This is really powerful.
I want to. Well, let's hit the rest of this.
Real quick, before you do it. And I know our brother is our brother Ishmael is familiar with her work. The late Charshi McIntyre.
Absolutely.
She wrote a book called The Criminalizing of a Race, where she talks about how millions of Native Americans became Negroes at the stroke of a pen.
Yep.
See?
Misclassification.
At misclassification. That's right.
And tell me, that was the alley hoop for the $5 Indian, correct?
Of course.
Correct. Because you had the black Indians being taken off the rolls, that made room for pale Europeans to pay $5 and get included into the rolls, even impersonating the surnames.
Brother, wow. See, you know what else this coincides with? You know, the Compromise of 1877. Rutherford B. Hayes and that whole thing where the Dixiecrats said, listen, we won't challenge the presidency. We won't challenge your election if you pull the federal troops out the South and let us rock out with these Negroes.
Correct.
Right? And that began the era of takeovers of whole quote unquote black cities.
Yes.
And one of the key things that were happening with these takeovers is that they would go to the courthouse and burn all the records.
Yes.
The records.
There's a system in place to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Ain't that crazy?
Now, whenever y'all ready, there's another video example for us to see how important these cases are. And when I'm dealing with these cases, the legal term for it is called partis sequitur venerum. It means baby follows the belly.
The mother. That's right.
Yes. The baby follows the belly rule was what was being used in order to make sure if a person would be deemed as free or a slave. And since Indian slavery was illegal, this was in 1662. So since 1662, when the baby follow the belly rule was being applied, if you can prove that you had indigenous ties, you were being illegally enslaved because they never stopped Indian slavery. That's what Marguerite is proving in the 1800s.
Stop. Y'all hear this?
Right? She was in the 1800s, and the law was in place in 1662. So that's over 200 years of them still enslaving indigenous people, and they were still winning court cases.
So the narrative had to be changed.
Yes.
It had to be. It had to be changed aggressively so people like you and me, despite having grandmothers and great-grandmothers that you already know, right, would never have the opportunity to be classified as Native.
And I want to show you the importance of that. But if y'all have any questions before we go over the next video that will show that in real time,
go.
Bro. Wait.
Yeah.
Well, Because what you got to understand is that I'm a brother, though I don't speak a lot, right? I know where I came. I know where I came from. You see what I'm saying? And I'm hearing names and tribes that are rubbing me in a specific way. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
for sure.
And it's like,
Definitely being rubbed.
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's get this right.
Come on now.
Yes, sir.
Let's put this in perspective.
Right.
Is it or is it ain't?
Is you is or is you ain't.
Bro,
I want to touch on that real quick before we go further, because this turned out to be better than I thought, and I thought it was going to be crazy. It's turned out to be better. But let me just say this. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and this is where a lot of us, because of our way of thinking, the way we've been trained, we tend to think either or. When he said, we as a clean and pure nation descended from the inhabitants of Africa, stop right there. Here's where we get it messed up. We've all been socialized into thinking that our connection to Africa was slavery.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
See? Despite the fact that luminaries like Dr. Clyde Winters published a peer-reviewed paper showing genetic connection,
right,
to Africa and Mexico, the Mexicans, during the time period when Mansa Musa or Abu Bakr II made his voyage.
1300s, right?
There you go. So, so when I bring this up to people, sometimes I ask the question. I say, okay, 1300s, Abu Bakr sends hundreds and hundreds of ships. Boom, cool, right? 1501, Africans from Spain pop up in the Caribbean and run into people that look just very similar to them.
Right.
Do you call them Africans or do you call them natives? See? This thing is way more nuanced than we've been trained to think about.
It is.
See?
And the reconfiguration of the mind is where the battle takes place, because you have to change the narratives that has to be rooted in truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
See?
Uh-oh.
Narrative control, people.
I thought I had narrative control already.
Yo, Sheik 7, I told you this show was going to be crazy, didn't I?
I thought I had narrative control already. I don't have nothing.
I told you.
No. Like, y'all don't know how I feel right now. Like, I gotta go get my book.
Hey, Mo. Hey, Granny told the truth.
Granny told the truth. Right?
Granny and Granny told the truth.
Yes.
We them folks.
Did my screen share at all? Did my screen share?
Let me.
I think I need permission. Yeah.
Yeah. Granny done told the truth. We them folks.
Yes, sir.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
I don't see it, Ish. Oh yeah, I see it. No, I see it. No. I see it.
No problem. Y'all let me know if y'all see it too.
We see it.
Got it.
Okay. So this topic here is dealing with the African American Museum. They had the African American Museum that opened up 2 years ago in South Carolina. I've been there. It's a beautiful museum. And when they did their grand opening, they brought in, of course, CNN for the grand opening of the museum. And this is very important information of what this host found about his history. Let's see what it says about, in real time, how important this history is.
African American history. It's Black history in global context and through individual stories too. Now, to show off the expanse and resonance of the museum's Center for Family History, researchers traced my genealogy. Now listen, as a Black man with deep roots in the American South, I thought I knew where my story was headed. I was very wrong.
Very few moments in my career ever brought me to this.
Crying.
Oh, man. It happened at the International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina, which opened this month. 6 centuries of history packed into 150,000 square feet at the historic Gadsden's Wharf.
Above 40% of all enslaved Africans would have come in through Gadsden's Wharf. We've been referred to as the Ground Zero. of importation of enslaved people into the United States.
Dr. Tanya Matthews is the museum's president and CEO.
Space of
Would it be a bad idea if you use our credit card to pay for your marketing? Actually, it is a shark from the TV show Shark.
solemnity or celebration?
Yes, I refuse to choose.
Tribal art and contemporary fashion, relics of protest and reports of resistance.
It's this infusion of trauma and joy constantly that we like to talk about here. You get the full story, but you're going to get all the context in it.
What arguably is the best illustration of full context is the Museum Center for Family History. It's a team of researchers with access to millions of records that can trace African-American lineage, sometimes back to a slave ship that came into this very port. The expert genealogist here spent months tracing my lineage. And this was the day of the long-awaited reveal.
Make sure you got a box of Kleenex by you and sit there and enjoy.
That's the museum's top genealogist, Dr. Shelley Birthright. She's joining us from the University of Virginia.
This is a tree, just a snapshot of your tree, and I'm following your maternal line.
Wow. That's a lot just seeing the tree.
Well, that represents David Venn, my great-grandfather's great-grandfather.
You belly, you mother.
Richmond County, Virginia, on a farm with his wife Judy and their 18 children. And in 1871, he filed this claim to be reimbursed for livestock and supplies requisitioned by Union troops during the Civil War.
Another thing that is significant is that he owned the land that he's on, and it was 23 acres.
Where did a man in the 1870s, so soon after the end of slavery, get the money to buy 23 acres?
Absolutely. And the thing of it is, I would even question, he said he was freeborn.
Well, for some answers, we have to go back more than 300 years to my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, Mary. She arrived on a ship in Northumberland County, Virginia in 1712, before America was America. Her granddaughter, my 8 times great-grandmother, Bess, was with her. That's according to this centuries-old deposition that Dr. Murphy's team uncovered. Why a deposition? We'll learn that a little later.
And Bess at the time was about 13 years old. Witnesses apparently said they looked like they were Indians.
Researchers believe that Mary and Bess were actually Matabani, like these people of that region of Virginia called the Northern Neck.
We're not sure where they came from, but Thomas Smith of Richmond County did enslave one of Bess's children, and that was Sarah.
And it's Sarah, my 7 times great-grandmother, who changes the trajectory of her children and all her descendants who followed.
There was a law back in 1705 that declared that all children that are enslaved or free, their condition would be based on whatever their mother was.
Remember, Sarah and Bess arrived free people.
So Sarah has a lawsuit that's filed saying, we're free.
This is the actual lawsuit filed by Sarah, suing for her freedom and for the freedom of her descendants. And that deposition, it was from a witness who saw Mary and Bess arrive decades earlier.
So in 1791, the court agreed with Sarah and her children, the grandchildren, and all of those relatives who were descendants of Mary and Bess are going to be free.
That my ancestors filed and sued for their freedom. It is remarkable.
We're not done.
We're not done. We're not done. Okay. We're not done. Let me get a Kleenex, Doctor.
I told you to have a box there.
But not all of Sarah's family was free. Before the court's decision, Sarah's enslavers illegally sold her daughter, Rachel, and then Rachel was sold again.
You
And
caught
for the
that?
next 20
Yes.
Legally sold her and sold her again.
her children remained in bondage. When she learned of the decision in 1807, more than a quarter century after her mother's groundbreaking lawsuit for freedom, Rachel filed this lawsuit against her enslaver, claiming that she was the daughter of a free woman, and therefore she and her children should also be free.
And guess what? The witnesses and things all came through and they were awarded their freedom.
Wow. Won the case.
Imagine being able to build anything. Just
Wow. Are y'all with me so far of what we're witnessing?
Oh yeah. If it allow me to, if you could call it jumping ahead, we're actually looking at a strategy that can be employed today.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
you catching what's being put down, right? So y'all can go to my website and read the whole breakdown of Victor Blackwell's family. I give you the whole storyline. I supply you with the video we just saw. I give you the storyline I give you the whole family history, and I give you the blueprint of how you can apply this information in real time today. So I give you the whole breakdown of the Vinny family, the quotes, everything dealing with this part of the history, as well as why we have the petition. We have the petition. We have over 10,700 names. We've had people sign the petition like Dr. Cynthia McKinney, of course, Chief Warhorse, Kyrie Irvin, Hawthorne James, Hollywood actor, and we're addressing the misclassification of the American Indian, right? Because they've used a misclassification in order to enslave us. That's why these are so very important things to be addressed. So I just wanted to yield the floor on that.
Bro, what is that? What is Urban Indian what?
Urban Indian Heritage Society.
Got it.
Hey, Brother Ed, do me a
Yes,
favor.
sir.
Since you're controlling it, bring your website back up and, deal with this Cypion case.
Yes, sir. No problem. Let's go here for you.
Man, bro, listen.
Isn't it the dopest thing when you can learn something, bro?
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, I'm in school.
Yes, sir. I'm a babe amongst all y'all, so.
This is serious. This is serious.
And dealing with the Cypion case, let me know, is the share screen up right now?
Let me get it.
It's coming up. Okay.
Boom. Y'all see it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, you can see it. Okay. And dealing with specifically with the Marguerite Sccypion case, the first one, I have separate posts that deal with it. But that 1805 case, again, it was years before Dred Scott. And you even have some of the lawyers that were in Marguerite's case that were still around for the Dred Scott case.
Ain't that something?
Same lawyers, right? Because it was in the same Supreme Court.
Oh, same territory.
Right. So some of the lawyers were there. You'll see the names that were in both of the cases, right? So that's why this is important as far as her case, because her case was being tied to the Virginia cases. She was applying the same laws from the 1600s and the 1800s. And you just saw this brother, his family won 2 separate court cases. Do we know how important that is? That they were illegally enslaving those people. Even after she won the case, they were still taking those children and enslaving them.
Wow.
Because they weren't giving up. They weren't going to Africa and getting them.
Right.
They were enslaving the indigenous people. Mattapani are indigenous people in Virginia today. Right? But they're being misclassified in Virginia by Walter Plecker. They would identify the surnames and then make them into Negroes. Right? And she was changing laws, being over in Missouri using the same laws. Why is that important? Because these are case laws. These are Supreme Court cases. They just don't tell you about this. It's just as relevant as Dred Scott is today. Marguerite Scipion's case is just as important.
Correct.
But they don't tell you that.
Right.
So let's deal with why this is important as far as Marguerite, because what they were arguing was Not only did she win her case, but let's deal with how she's being described in those court records we were talking about. Let's go to the Missouri Historical Review. In fact, here, let's just go to the review itself to make sure we ain't got to go to my website. Let's go straight to the source, right? We're going to go right here to the source, which is the State of Historical Society of Missouri, page number 17. Slave freedom suits before Dred Scott. Now, if you go to my page, the hyperlink is going to take you there, but let's read what it says. The first of the suits, Marguerite versus Pierre Chateau Sr., did not come to trial until 1827. She was fighting this for 20 years before it even came to trial.
Wow.
Dedication.
Both sides carefully researched and prepared their cases. Gamble's detailed case notes indicate that he and his associates searched the St. Louis County archives and local parish records for evidence to sustain their client's claim, with a reference to the defense counsel's use in the previous trial of an alleged speech defending Indian slavery by Etienne de Bourgmont, an early French explorer. Gamble cryptically concluded the speech is blarney. During Marguerite's trial, Madame Chauvin again took the stand, the slave owner. She testified that the plaintiff's Indian heritage entitled her to freedom under the terms of Spanish law, even though she earlier had sold Chateau her ownership rights to Marie Scipion's descendants. As in the 1806 trial, the defense attempted to accentuate the plaintiff's black ancestry. See, they tried to make her black. Did y'all catch that? In his testimony, elderly Auguste Chateau described Marguerite's mother as brown in color with very woolly hair like that of a negress. They're trying to make her black, right? So they're heavy on being active of what she looked like. So they have no reason to try to make her into a red bone. They have to make her as black as possible because they need to make her black, right?
Brother Ish, that
Yes,
sounds very, very reminiscent of something that our current president said a number of years ago. They don't look Indian to me.
And they don't look like Indians, they Indians.
Indian to me.
I
remember
now,
he said that.
Let's remember the context of what he was saying when he said that.
Right.
He was describing the black Indians who were Pequot Indians that owned Foxwood Casino in Connecticut.
That's a fact.
Now, I'm going to repeat. This is one of the largest casinos in the world.
That's right.
It's called Foxwood Casinos.
That's right.
And it's owned by black Indians. You know, the Indians that met the Mayflower? Those are the Pequots.
Whoa.
They were called Michael Jordan Indians by Don Imus and Donald Trump. Pull up the interview of Donald Trump on Don Imus shows. They're called the Michael Jordan Indians because they look like Michael Jordan.
Wow.
Right? Wow. So, again, the mother is described as brown in color with very woolly hair like that of a negress. Bernard Pratt called that Marie Cypion had been very black with hair like a negress. In closing arguments, the opposing attorneys continued their debate about Spanish policies governing Indian slavery. The defense team's all-out effort to demonstrate the persistence of Indian slavery during the Spanish regime bore fruit. The judge instructed the jury that if Marguerite's maternal grandmother had been a lawful Indian slave taken captive in war and sold as a slave before the Spanish took possession of Louisiana, then they should consider her descendants as lawful slaves. McGurk and Gamble objected strenuously to the interpretation of legal and historical grounds. Needless to say, they won their court case because she won her court case, right? So you can read about the whole details of it, but I wanted to emphasize that she was very dark, negress with very woolly hair in the court records.
Today socially as black.
Absolutely. This was a black indigenous court case when they were fighting to make her black. But if you tie yourself into the indigenous populations, you are entitled to justice.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Did they compensate her as well and her descendants as well?
They freed all of her descendants as far as acknowledging the fact that they were indigenous. And there's a caveat as far as how they acknowledge, because the Natchez were deemed as an extinct tribe. Why were they deemed as extinct? Because they were being enslaved and taken to Hispaniola. What is Hispaniola? That is what you will call Haiti, right? In the Dominican Republic.
That's Haiti.
Absolutely. They were enslaving Natchez Indians and taking them off their ancestral homelands over to Hispaniola to work them as slaves.
As an added point to what Brother Ishmael is saying, and I'm saying this for the audience, what he's describing, natives being taken from one place in the Americas and enslaved in another, right? And the narrative being painted as they came straight off the boat from the continent of Africa. Do you know that Ferdinand and Isabella prosecuted Christopher Columbus for doing the exact same thing?
Facts.
The exact same thing. Yeah. The exact same thing, people. Crazy.
And I don't know if we went over this the last time I was here, but there was the Mayan slaves that were being brought over to the Americas and made into slaves.
That's true.
Did we go over that last time I was here? If not, I can pull up the information.
I don't recall.
I don't. Let's go.
Okay.
Well, you know, refresh our memory, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, what we have here are the Mayan slaves were kidnapped and brought to the Carolinas and Virginia. Again, the name of the article is Mayan slaves kidnapped and brought to the Carolinas and Virginia, right? In North America. Okay. So on this article here, number one, you can go to CNN. Again, I give you the hyperlinks on my website. If you go to the hyperlink, it'll take you to the CNN article that will show the Mayan slave ships. As you can see, this was in the year 2020 now. This is all in modern stuff. Mexican archaeologists identified the first Mayan slave ship to ever have been discovered.
Wow.
This is a steamship. This ain't no freaking slave ship. This is a steamship. Because this is in the 1800s that they were enslaving Mayans and bringing them into the Americas. Right? So let's deal with that article here. The name of this book is British Honduras to Belize, Transformation of a Nation by Godfrey Madakagi. And this is page number 25. It says here, quote, in the area that is now Belize, the Maya suffered and died under Spanish occupation. They were massacred and fled into the dense forest of central and western Belize for security. The British buccaneers and pirates also attacked the Maya along the coast of Belize. They raided and destroyed most of the Mayan settlements along the coast. They also stole food, enslaved the Maya, and kidnapped Mayan women and children. Some Mayans were even sold as slaves to British plantation owners and settled in Jamaica. Some were also sold as slave masters in the southern states of the United States, especially North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. The region was a land of suffering for non-whites, but also of prosperity for settlers in Europe. So what that proves is that the Mayans, now I just showed you the Mayan slave ships on CNN. You just saw the link. You just went to the CNN link right here next to it and saw it for yourself. Go to CNN and pull it up in 2020. Yeah. They were taking Mayans and enslaving them in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Jamaica, and Cuba. I got the photos of them in Cuba being enslaved there, right? Wow. So this is a whole slave trade that was taking place. So I just wanted to make sure we were able to put that on the record. Okay.
I have a question to
of
this.
Course.
I just thought about it.
Sure.
So what's the connection with them and the Buffalo Soldiers then? What's that connection during that time period?
The Buffalo Soldiers were coming along in those 1800s. You had the disbursement of American Indians in their ancestral homelands, i.e., Seminoles were being dispersed, and they weren't defeated by the U.S. Army because the U.S. Army ran out of money. The Army was spending so much money fighting so many years against the Seminoles. They started, because you had something that was coming up that was called the Civil War.
Right.
So they were fighting these Indians for so long at a stalemate and losing so much money. The Civil War started coming in. They started having to shift troops around. So the Seminoles were never defeated. So they started making agreements with these Seminoles. If we just come to this agreement, we'll set aside some land for you in this territory called Oklahoma, and you can go and live in peace and we'll never mess with you again. The Seminoles were weary on their side of fighting that war and not losing. They were at a stalemate. They said, we will agree to this. Of course, white people start white people in, right? Yeah. They broke those rules and wanted to start putting them in prison when they got to Oklahoma. Some of the previous Indians that got there said, wait a minute, they're enslaving them over there. They made a left and went into Mexico. They said, we're not making this right into Oklahoma. We're making this left into Mexico. So they started setting up townships at the borderline on the Mexican side. Now, white people not being able to fight were getting their butt kicked by South and Western Native American tribes, Navajos, etc. Those kind of Indians were beating them down. They started saying, wait a minute, if we'll promise you, really, we mean it this time, we're really going to treat y'all good. If y'all just get some troops and help us fight these natives who are beating our butt over here, we will then allow you to go and live in peace in Oklahoma. That's how the Buffalo Soldiers got formed. Wow. They were the indigenous tribes that went into Mexico, became troops to help defend the United States against those southwestern tribes. That's why Beyonce was being attacked for wearing a Buffalo Soldier shirt last month.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because the Native Americans know that it was those black Indians that was wiping the floor with them, and they was feeling a kind of way.
Hey, yo,
did that answer your question, bro?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's powerful.
We got a question. You know, we got super chat from brother Louis Anael-Bey Ishmael Bey. He asked, does this tie with Haitians being brought to New Orleans?
Does this tie with Haitians being brought to New Orleans? In a sense, yes, because you have some of the Natchez Indians that, as I said, were being taken to Hispaniola. They were uprising over there to the level that they were saying, get these crazy people off our island. they was running amok as far as revolts.
That's a fact.
And some of them were just sitting and saying, we're not working and you're not going to make us work. So they were actually putting some of them in, like hundreds and hundreds of them, back on ships and sending them back to South Carolina. They were not sending them back to their ancestral homelands. But you have a high influx of Indians that are being sent back to South Carolina because they refused and were causing such a ruckus on those plantations there. That's what was sparking a lot of the revolutionary stuff taking place. Of course, Haiti defending France because France was going broke.
Right.
Haiti defeating France is what freed up 13 states. That's another reason why the slave narrative is false. Right. Because white people didn't own land to be having that many slaves that were coming here. Right. They weren't landowners. So 13 states got opened up by the Haitians defeating France. See?
Now, the Haitians that were coming to South Carolina, are they pretty much tied into the Gola community down there, or they just stay separate? What would you say to that?
It's cutting through the misconceptions is very important. The Gullah is a variation of the Guale Indians. They'll sit there and try to tell you that it's West African, but it's Guale. When you look at who the Gullah are the Guale, and the Geechee are the Ogeechee Indians. That's all in that area of the South Carolina. The Ogeechee Indians are the Indians of that region. And the Gullah are the Guale Indians of that region.
And where I get my name from, he's a descendant of Gullah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And you'll get that information even in that museum we just saw in South Carolina. They'll tell you when you go there, they have the display that will tell you that the Guale or the Gullah.
Wow.
And in that museum.
Brother Ish.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar? And I think I'm pretty sure I don't know the answer to this question, but I want to say it for the benefit of the audience. Are you familiar with the research and the work of the late Lakota native Meredith Quinn?
I do know of Meredith Quinn's work. Yes.
Got you. He, in one of his books, I've studied a number of his works. In one of his books, and of course, in terms of narrative shattering, of course, a lot of the stuff that he's saying is definitely shattering narratives. But in one particular part of one of his works and his research, he talks about the Trail of Tears and the mass murder of natives.
Right.
And he talks about one of the reasons why, and this is what he said, was to cover up any evidence of an old world connection between native confederacies and the Moroccan Empire. Understood.
Now, it's important when we deal with who are being put in those slave plantations down there.
Yes.
I use this quote, which is a very important quote, by John Quincy Adams, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. The quote from John Quincy Adams reads, "What is the temper of feelings between the component parts of your own southern population, between your own Anglo-Saxon, Norman French, and Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana?
Come on, brother.
Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri. Between them all and the Indian savage, the original possessor of the land from which you and I are scourging him already back to the foot of the Rocky Mountains. What between them all and the Native American Negro of African origin, whom they are holding in cruel bondage." That's a very important quote.
Very important.
Because he's asking the questions. Nobody talks about the Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri. Why is this president speaking about Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana? Do y'all know about the Moorish Spanish inhabitants of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri? Have y'all been told about that?
Not by the status quo.
No.
Right.
So Ish, to your goosebumps. Here we go. So I just sent you and Sheik 7 something that we found years ago. And I'll quote it, but it was a conversation that George Ashman, right? He was a Whig Party member out of Georgia. Had no, I'm sorry, not out of Georgia, out of Massachusetts, right? And it was it was a monologue that he was giving on the floor of Congress about whether the United States should get involved in the Mexican War.
Right.
This, and to what you just read, this is what it said. The stupendous deserts. Okay, yeah, pull it up, brother. But I'll go ahead and read it, but then you pull it up for everybody. Sure. He said the stupendous deserts between the Nueces and Bravo rivers are the natural boundaries between the Anglo-Saxon and the Moritanian races.
That's what he said.
There ends the Valley of the West. There Mexico begins. Thence beyond the Bravo, begin the Moorish people and their Indian associates to whom Mexico properly belongs.
Yep.
Who should not cross that vast desert if they could, as we on our side, too, ought to stop there, because interminable conflicts must ensure our growth or our going south or their coming north of that gigantic boundary. While peace is cherished, that boundary will be sacred. Not till the spirit of conquest rages will the people on either side molest or mix with each other. And whenever they do, one or the other race must be conquered, if not established.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Again, the Moritanian races and the Indian associates.
Nobody's talking about this.
No. And that's so pivotal because you're talking about the establishment of Texas. Texas is a republic.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
You deal with even at the borderline of Texas and Mexico, you have the town called Matamoros, which means kill the Moor.
Kill the Moors. And you have the Mexican or let me not say Mexican, but he celebrated in South America and Mexico, the saint Santiago Matamoras.
Right.
Killer of Moors. And then later in literature to try to change his name from Matamoras to Mata Indios.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This is crazy.
So again, that whole tie of the indigenous populations and the Moorish history, it merges together. You just got to be able to pick through the nuanced part of the history in order to unlock it, because it's obscured. These aren't speeches you hear about. These aren't laws that you read about, right? And that's all by design. They have to push a narrative. Yes. Like we just saw the one brother on CNN. He is calling himself an African American his whole life, only to be told, I won multiple court cases as an American Indian. In that same interview, he says, I'm taking my family to the Mattapanai Indian reservation to go get in tie with my roots. He didn't know that he was indigenous.
Right.
But they went through all the documented records to prove that he was. Right? But he was mislabeled. Kyrie Irving, he's a chief. His great-great-great-grandfather was a chief of the Lakota.
Right.
Right? So they went and sought him out. Why did they go seek him out? Because he's a multi-millionaire. That's why.
That's why.
Right? Mm-hmm. There's lots of us who have indigenous ties that were mislabeled. He was raised in Jersey not knowing who he was. He was born in Australia, but he was raised in Jersey not knowing his indigenous ties until the tribe went and found him. Yeah. So there's lots of us who we hear, I got Indian in my family. Well, what happened to the Indian is the question that we ask. What happened to the Indian?
Come on now.
Mo, I asked they have like a Native American museum down here. And I asked the lady that was running it, and she said there's no documents on that. Put up. Like, there's no documents on that. Mm-hmm. You might be saying that your great grandma might say that you're Cherokee, and it could be true.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's no record or no census of that being there.
Nor are they obligated to provide you with that information.
Facts.
Right? Yeah. You have to be a scientist and go and become a genealogist in order to unlock that, right? Mm-hmm. We can look on the walls and see that he's dark as me. But how do you tie yourself to that?
Come on now.
Right? What makes that relevant to you?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that we are obligated to do our own research in order to reap those benefits and that reward.
Come on now.
Right.
And that is a big part of narrative control, including what we're doing right now on Let's Think podcast. This is our media. That is that's the right to freedom of speech. In other words, we have the right to tell our story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's in those records. We just have to go and unlock it, because people will be surprised. You have people who have money and resources to access the information. They're just as surprised as a normal person on the street because they're just as uninformed.
Have you run into or encountered or dealt with any of the people in the Quaker community that hire themselves out to do just this because they have records?
They do. They do. Yes, you do. You come across them because, again, a lot of them are obligated to help, puts the pieces together because of their history, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of them were obligated to help during slavery, but a lot of them have access to records and information that will assist you if they just see that you're trying to help yourself. You have allies that will help you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yes, sir.
Yo, this is so powerful.
Yeah.
These are real tools to use in the war on narratives, because that's what we're really fighting, even in this present day.
Correct.
Even in this present day, it's a war on narratives, people.
Right. And I just want to show y'all not only the history side of things, but how relevant it can be in real time, right? You're able to see these examples that are being used, and even the languages that are being used by the politicians, right? They're going to sit there and try to make you or push a narrative, ultimately it's still to suit their purposes.
Correct.
If they're trying to tell you what a 13th Amendment is, and this is only for the 14th Amendment, Brother Sharif, can you please explain to us the importance of the Mexican program when we deal with immigration, the Bracero Program? Can you explain that to the public, please?
Man, oh man. So again, our memories are short, and we're lazy when it comes to research and history, right? So of course, the narrative being pushed by the President Heritage Foundation, right? And whatever. The executive branch right now. The narrative being pushed is, Biden brought millions and millions and millions of undocumented immigrants into America, right?
That's what they say.
All anybody has to do is look up this word. It's a program. Bracero, the Bracero Program. Just look it up. Look at it, people. It got started in the 40s, people. The Bracero Program was a United States government program to fill in gaps in menial labor by using undocumented Mexicans. And because of the Great Migration North, our Great Migration North created many gaps. So they brought them in undocumented, right? For, on paper, a limited amount of time. But let's be real, people. Do you think the people who are benefiting, the employers, the owners of farms, hotels, or whatever, got rid of them at the end of their period?
No.
Of course they didn't.
It was cheap labor.
They had children.
became work.
Get it? See? They had children who, by virtue of 14th Amendment and the Constitution of the United States, were full-blooded citizens. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And so they were undocumented 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Nobody said a thing. No one said a thing, people. Well, and here's the other part. Because they're undocumented immigrants, were they eligible for Social Security? Absolutely not.
No.
Did they pay into Social Security? They absolutely did.
They had to.
Come on.
Shout out to Louis Anael-Bey.
You see what I'm saying?
For the $2 super chat. Shout out to
Brother Ish, was that what you were looking for?
That's exactly what I was looking for. That Bracero Program set up by FDR were bringing in Mexicans in order to do the cheap labor and to do those jobs. Correct. Along with them were undocumented people that would do the work even cheaper, opening up the floodgates of these Mexicans coming in. Now all of a sudden, oh my God, the immigrants are here. You were the federal government bringing in these immigrants because they were doing the work that you didn't want to do at such a price.
Exactly.
Right?
I can't pay you 5, but I give you 2.
There you go. And somebody else was willing to come in and only take 1. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly, you explained that. Excellent. Thank you so much, Lord. I appreciate that.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Man, y'all brothers cook.
Yo, listen. Okay. This is, when we talk, not just, man, listen, this is what we call the uniting of Asia. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We all play a part in this thing. And the way we fell was we stopped working with each other.
Facts.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? We stopped working with each other, man. Listen. Go ahead. No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
No, I need y'all to build on that because my question gonna probably throw it a whole nother level. So okay. So now, since we done brought up this case and everything,
yes,
how does the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment play in act of the so-called Negro, African American, or colored person in this society?
I think that's important because the term Negro was a term that was being used and applied by the Portuguese, right? By the Portuguese, when they use that term, they use it in two contexts. You had Negro de Guinea, Negro de Guinea, which was an African, and you had Negro de Terra, which was the Indian.
Was the Indian, Native American.
Right? When they got here. So these blacks of the land, well, again, that's what Negro de Terra means, blacks of this land.
Mm-hmm.
These blacks of this land, you're not talking the same thing, even if you're looking for reparations, restoration.
No.
You have to go different paths because there's different things that are going to cover you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But when you've been misclassified, as you can see, they were trying to make Marguerite into something that she was not.
There you go.
Or trying to limit who she was, because it's questionable if her father was African or if he was just a black Indian. They don't know.
Right.
Whatever it is, that's a moot point.
Exactly.
It's a legal moot point because they were dealing with who? The mother, not the father. Right? What she proved is that my mother is Natchez.
There you go.
And I'm a Natchez. Right? I'm a descendant of a Natchez Indian.
Yep.
So the Negro de Terra has to be included in the conversation because you have a large group of us who've been misclassified, right? But you have valid points that are relevant to the 13th and the 14th Amendment going to another form of Negro that needs to be addressed and not minimized either.
There you go.
But just as important as Dred Scott is Marguerite Sccypion, I would say even more important because I know who they were enslaving in there. I know you couldn't get them from the Guinea. I know you couldn't by law. So you started enslaving them, and we have the cases that prove that you never stopped enslaving Indians.
Never stopped.
You never stopped. That was the first slave trade that took place here.
There you go.
They didn't stop in 1619 like they tell you.
No, of
they
course
give you
not.
that narrative that when Jamestown started, they started, they stopped enslaving Indians and started enslaving Africans. That's a lie.
A lie.
Right.
Jack D. Forbes talks about that.
He does.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Forbes gives you very good details of that, and even the misclassifications, right?
Even
of
the misclassifications, to like your point of Negro de Terra, right? Of Native Americans being enslaved and then sold in Spain,
right?
As Negroes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, King Philip's War. In King's Philip War, they were taking the Pequot Indians. Remember, we just talked about the Michael Jordan Indians?
Yes.
They were taking those Pequot Indians during King Philip's War and moving them over to Spain and enslaving them.
That's right.
Also off the west coast of Africa.
Ain't that crazy? The narrative we've been fed in reverse.
Right.
Ain't that something? Crazy. I want to touch real quick, Brother McGriffil, on 14th Amendment. Right? Everybody, because they've hammered it for decades, is just like that song that sucks. That premieres on the radio and you're like, that sucks. But after hearing it 80 billion 11 times every day, it grows on you.
Right.
So Justice Taney's opinion has been pushed down our throats as being the decision.
Right.
And all you got to do is just ask the simple questions. First of all, what type of case was Dred Scott Case? Was it a citizenship case? No. It was a property case.
Right.
See? Why was the decision dismissed for lack of jurisdiction? Because that was the decision. Why was that? Because the ruling was that he was property. He had no standing in the court.
Right.
So Justice Taney, when he said Negro of African descent, whether slave or free, was not part of we the people, and therefore cannot be a citizen. In legal language, in legalese, that's called dictum, dictum, meaning what? An opinion that don't got nothing to do with the case itself. And that's the truth, people. And why did Taney do that? Because he was a Confederate sympathizer. He was
Absolutely
the Confederate line. That's why.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's fact.
Yes. That's why he said that.
Yeah. Slave owner.
Yes. 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 See,
It's not
this is important. This is really important to understand because again, I've heard attorneys try to tell me, oh, well, the Dred Scott case, I'm like, you're not reading.
Right. You're just quoting.
Yeah, you're not even reading. You know, and the 14th Amendment, well, that was Dred Scott, Dred v. Sanford. But the 14th Amendment, right? Okay, that's another thing. That's what I wanted to talk about real quick. The 14th Amendment doesn't grant, and this is where, Trump and his cronies, well, the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to babies of slaves. Legislation cannot confer citizenship.
Correct.
Okay? It can't. You can't do that. You can't just... Anyway, the 14th Amendment, what did it do? First of all, it was punitive against the South. The 14th and 15th Amendments were punitive. It was, oh no, the South you all left in 1861 ain't quite the same South you coming back to.
Right.
We're going to force you to recognize the birthright citizenship of former slaves. That's it.
See what we said earlier? To the victor goes the spoils. That's why it's relevant.
That's why it's relevant. There you go. So you're gonna be forced to recognize their birthright citizenship. And then it was force ratified, including federal troops in the southern states, and it remained that way until 1877. 1877, when the federal government pulled those troops, that was the rise of the KKK, the rise of the White League, the rise of the red shirts, the rise of poll taxes, the rise of out-and-out organized...
Key figures like Albert Pike, etc. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. See, that's when all that happened. And I said that to say this. They had to ratify the 14th and 15th Amendments, the southern states, as a condition to being reabsorbed back into the Union. In other words, if anybody's a so-called 14th Amendment citizen, it's them.
Yeah. It was a prerequisite.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
If there's such a thing.
And I know that it's going over a lot of people's head. Replay that section of what was just being said. Look it up, and with the documentation, and it'll all start to make sense for you because it's reconfiguring the narrative. We have to wrap our mind around the body of information that we're dealing with. I get it.
And see, that's why, man, we say we use the hammer and the Moorish to do what? Drive home the truth and pound it in until it's a repetition. We have to change our thinking. We got to change the narrative, people.
Did y'all catch that super chat, brother? Elio Fletcher L. Honors and gratitude for the 4.99 super chat. He says, "What tribes was affected by the Louisiana Purchase? Moors in Virginia considered free as early as 1700. Where can Moors get dual citizenship?" That's the question. Where can Moors get dual citizenship?
Those like three questions.
Yeah.
So, Brother Ish, okay, you can answer these better, but like that second one, Moors in Virginia considered free as early as 1700. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Ish. These freedom cases were like per person issues. There was no blanket. The state of Virginia declared these people free. Is that correct?
That's correct. These are individual cases that were using the case law in order to prove their freedom.
Right. Got you. Yep. And what tribes were affected by the Louisiana Purchase?
The Louisiana Purchase will be mostly affecting the Chata. Mostly.
Gotcha.
Now, back when we were coming up as early Moors, you know, going through Cleveland, you know what I'm saying? We had the Empress, right? Who, you know, again, as she was forming the Washita, her regions of anyone who knows her history, the Empress was proving that her family was, again, directly affected by the Louisiana Purchase because it was a fraudulent act.
Yes.
There were massive amount of land that were being used in order to fraudulently claim land.
Yes, sir.
An example was the Louisiana Purchase. It was not properly ratified or documented, you know, legally.
Right.
The same thing applies to what was taking place with the Yazoo land fraud. If you look at the Yazoo land fraud, states were being put into place. And if you pull up the Yazoo land frauds, the Yazoo Indians were being enslaved, moved out, and they were taking Yazoo lands. And that's how many of the states got established in the South, based on the Yazoo land frauds. We talked about Oklahoma being deemed as Indian territory.
Right.
Because Oklahoma was, again, not properly ratified. It was illegal. It was an illegal state.
Right.
Right. The original name presented for Oklahoma was supposed to be Aboriginea.
Woo.
Aboriginea. They changed the name and they ended up going with the name of Indian Territory.
Whoa.
Which then became Oklahoma. But if you look at the original Constitution of Oklahoma, it's nothing but a prototype of what the Cherokee wrote up. The Cherokee had brilliant lawyers. Right? White people, they only created one thing, and that's copyright infringement. That's the only thing they ever invented. They copied the verbatim the Cherokee Constitution and then made it the state constitution for Oklahoma that was originally Aboriginea.
Wow.
So the universe was on my mind too.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you talk about the Muskogee, you talk about the Chata, those are the ones mostly affected by, you know, the Louisiana land.
There you go.
Islam. We got created a boundless universe. Islam. $5 super chat. It says, can you talk about what Noble Juali said about the Reconstruction amendments and how that applies today?
Sure. Okay. So, matter of fact, we already kind of spoke to it, but I'll read his own words. I'll read his own words about it. What he said. He said, let me see. Let me find it real quick. Here it is. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. Stop right there. We just talked about that. How the 14th and 15th Amendments were contingents for them rejoining the Union. So when the prophet said back with the constitutional body of power, he meant back in the Union, right? And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced in 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of my people as citizens. In other words, that don't apply to us as it relates to citizenship. That wasn't for us. It was for the South. It was for the former Confederacy. See? And here's the other part that keeps, you know, again, we're dealing with narrative control, aggressive narrative control. So already the majority of Americans have been socialized into thinking that the 14th Amendment made us citizens.
Right.
So now Trump can come along and say, oh, well, 14th Amendment dealing with the subject of what, people? Birthright citizenship. He says that the 14th Amendment was for what? They're equating birthright citizenship with 14th Amendment as if the 14th Amendment created birthright citizenship. You catch that?
They're trying to make it synonymous.
There you go. But guess what? Never is under question. See, the 14th Amendment is significant related to citizenship because it was the first time legislatively citizenship was ever had to be described. Prior to that, citizenship is presumed. But for who was it presumed? Okay. See my point? We're talking narrative control here. So they'll never say that birthright, they'll never even speak to European Americans and birthright citizenship because it's presumed. It's presumed. Get it? So it's just like, follow this example. One of the things these guys are really good at doing is the tactic of redefining and condemning. We witnessed it live and in color with the term critical race theory. They misidentified it, misdefined it, pushed the misdefinition, and then condemned it.
Right.
And half of us ran right along with it. Critical race theory is not Black history. See?
Right.
And it's not taught in schools. It's taught at college level. But we weren't paying attention. We were asleep at the wheel.
Hey, Creator Boundless Universe did say he came in late, right? But he has a question. And I know we already handled this. We say, is there really an Indian in America?
Go ahead, bro. That's yeah.
Is there really an Indian in America? Brother Griff, you were gonna say that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
No, that's a question from Creator of the Boundless Universe.
Yeah. There's an American Indian. There's an American Indian. And in fact, if you look at, some of the older maps or some of the first maps on here, this was considered India Superior. So if you look on the map and it looks over here in the Americas, this is India Superior. What does that mean? That means it must be either India inferior or a different form of India, right? But look on the earliest maps and you'll see India Superior. So yeah, there's an Indian. And the key is this. What does Indian mean? What does American Indian mean? Well, it means you have Aboriginal title is what it means. Right? So it ties you to the land. A title has to tie you to this land. It means that you're the Aboriginal and you have the Aboriginal title to this land. That's what American Indian means. Now, if you have a treaty that can tie you to this land, then you would be deemed as American Indian. And an American Indian is not a Native American. Those are two different things. On the census, it's determined by the OMB, the racial categories. There is no racial category for Native American.
There isn't.
There is none. So what are you? Well, Native American means that you have a relationship with the United States government. You're a tribe, a federally recognized tribe. And with that federal recognition, you have that relationship, i.e. you are Native American. If you're an American Indian, you actually have a racial category recognized by the OMB. Why is that important? Because we at the Urban Indian Heritage Society petitioned the OMB as a part of our petition that has those thousands of names was the demand to remove certain phrases that were in the OMB being used. One of them was being recognized as, it used to say that you had to have a community and tribal affiliation in order to be an American Indian. They removed that language this year because of our demands of making sure that was done. Other people were writing the OMB saying, we want to be FBAs, we want to be freedmen, we want to be right. So you weren't even answering the question that they were asking.
Correct.
They were asking you, what is your racial category? And you were saying, well, I'm a descendant of a slave.
You were saying,
you never answered the question.
Never answered the question.
Right?
Brother, that is what we call square work right there.
Yes, sir.
That's called square work.
Yes, sir. We were diligent behind the scenes, making sure we were demanding the right things. Right?
That's right.
And that's how you get the traction. That's how you get some things going. Shout out to Chief Warhorse. She just got another proper recognition last month dealing with Bofaca and from the state of Louisiana. Y'all can read about it on the Slidell, Louisiana website. Also available on Facebook. Shout out to Cousin Phoenix Moon and the work of Urban Indian Heritage Society. Beautiful. And the great American Indians doing the work behind the scenes. We have an upcoming event in California. We on the West Coast now. We just left Virginia, but we on the West Coast now. So we got October 10th through the 13th. We have an event coming up in Los Angeles. Yes, sir.
Listen, brothers, I gotta run, but I gotta ask my brother Ish this real quick,
of
right?
Course.
And not just for the audience and for us, but for me, right? Mm-hmm. So, how do you see the Urban Indian Heritage Society working with the Moorish movement in general, the Moorish Science Symbol of America more specifically?
I think a big part of it is the relationship that you and I have, right? Myself as a member of the Urban Indian Heritage Society and me knowing you and being able to work in conjunction with you allows for that relationship to take place. We have relationships that deal with the international community. That's between my relationship with Dr. Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, right? As my sibling, we have those relationships. Right. You are my sibling. So we have those relationships in order to say, let's find out and let's sit down and find those common ground areas where we're pushing this forward as a family.
Powerful. See, because, and again, I'm preaching to the choir. You all know this. Prophet Drew Ali told us this. What he said: "Moors, you're at home." Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean we have to usurp or swagger jack or culture jack anybody.
Sure.
Right? He said, "Moors, you're at home. The European is 3,000 miles from home."
Facts.
Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, this is, man.
I'm gonna be in town next month. All right, so let's make sure we get a chance to sit down. You already know. You already know. We'll get together next month when I'm in town.
Absolutely. Yo, listen. I don't think we realize the impact of this show, people.
Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, Ish. Listen, Ish. You just mentioned another case in this presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Send me the name of that. We got to bring that one up too. We got to get to it.
Okay, absolutely. They're all on the website, and I'll send you the whole link. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Word is bond.
We're gonna bring you right back up here to demonstrate the measure. You know, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Well, it's always good to be home. I want to thank y'all for allowing me to come back, and it's always good to be able to see Brother Sharif, Brother Jarvis, yourself, 7. So good to see y'all, man. I love y'all.
Love you too, bro.
And, we got your back, bro.
This is listen, man.
Yes, sir.
This is like pulling that clean, shiny, ain't been fired yet out the box.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? No, real talk.
Let's Think Podcast is the YouTube channel. Let's Think Podcast.
Because it's really, not to say anything else isn't, but this is useful right now.
Oh yes, sir.
Yeah, real time. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
This is used, even if for no other reason. Watch this. If for no other reason, just starting the conversation.
Right.
We're gonna have whole conversations on Marguerite Scypion, and that changes the narrative. That demonstrates that we are decolonizing our thinking, people.
Right.
It was conversation. It was conversations that started this.
Come on now. Come on now.
Oh, just to count back, a shout out to Chief Warhorse too, because she cooked one of the Europeans about that whole
she did.
Trade.
She did.
Said, how did they leave looking like this
and come back
looking like you? You gotta explain that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta explain that one, Jack.
She cooking.
She was.
Right.
For sure. Right. Hey, man, we gotta. Man, I wish we can get Chief
And
on
again,
here.
you know, I gotta take off, but again, you know, and I'm big on this one, right? Our brothers and sisters in the Native community that are actively involved, and those of us in the Moorish community, we have to really think Islamically. And I don't mean church going. I don't mean, you know, I mean Islamically as in, okay, there's 100 things that issues that we have. 99 we disagree on, but we could join hands and work on the one we agree on. We gotta start thinking like that.
Facts.
That's called mathematical peace.
There you go.
Yep.
We have to start thinking like that, people. Yeah, not
Agreed.
highlighting the areas where we disagree. You know what I'm saying? How about we highlight the areas where we agree and we can move forward together on?
Come on.
That's it.
And Sharif, man, I've learned to live like that, or strive to live like that with every human being that I see.
Yes. But the word Muslim doesn't mean one who submits his will to the will of Allah. It's not what it means. Shout out to our brother Wesley Muhammad for making that public a while back, right? The root word for Muslim or Muslim, Sin, Lam, Mim, those 3 letters. It means completeness, wholeness, oneness. So a Muslim or a Muslim is one who seeks unity. That's why I said that. Islamic thinking. One who seeks unity. See what I'm saying? So out of 100 things, if I disagree with you on 99 of them, but I agree on one, then I'm obligated to press your hand and enter the house of labor on that one.
Allah created you and nations and tribes to get
know each other and not despise each other.
Yes, sir.
See?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Nicholas Bay, honors and gratitude for the super chat. Powerful bill, gratitude, family, gratitude to you. Support. Gratitude to you.
Yeah, this is dope. Hey, this got me amped up, yo.
Yeah, me too. Definitely fired up.
Hey, listen, Sharif, you already know. You're always welcome over here, bro.
Appreciate you, Felly.
Got something to say, and you want to let somebody know, man, hit me up. Let me know. Let
yes, sir.
Absolutely, brother.
Duly noted. Yes. All right. Well, I'm gonna leave y'all with peace and love. All right.
Peace and love.
All right, peace and love.
Hey. Family. This was one of the ones. Phoenix Moon. Peace. I see you in the chat. Phoenix Moon. Peace.
Going in the chat too.
Going in the chat. Peace. Hey man, love to the chat. I appreciate y'all every time.
For sure.
Hey, look, make sure y'all share this.
Please share this. Please get this out to everybody.
Like I need to see over 40 likes.
Oh yeah, and I got something to say too.
Yeah.
Go apologize to them folks. Go apologize to you folks.
Yeah.
Granny, if Granny them, Lord willing, they still on this side. Yeah. Go apologize to them folks.
Because
they was right.
You ain't believe it.
Please.
You ain't believe it.
Oh
yeah. Man, I'm gonna tell you something, man, that just that brought a whole that whole conversation. Actually, I went quiet because bro, I'm not even gonna say why I went quiet, bro. Because I'm just
mind blown.
Listen, man.
Mind blown.
Praise be to Allah. Honor to the brothers for coming on the show tonight. This is one of them ones, bro. This is one of them ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And demonstrating a solution to our problem.
Absolutely. They didn't come with they didn't just talk about the problem. They talked about the solution.
It's the solution to our problem.
And we got to get more solution based. You hear me?
Agreed.
We already been victim. We already, have grown up or been reared with a victim mentality. That need to go.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? We're no longer victims. We got to be creators. And the creator ain't no victim.
Islam.
Well, peace to the family. We finna get up out of here.
Peace
You
to
know,
the family.
Faith Tomorrow, Islam, peace and love, Phoenix Moon, Wilson Hart, everybody in the chat. If I missed you, Louis Anael-Bey, I love you, bro. Appreciate your love and support. Everybody, created a boundless universe. You know I can't forget you. Islam, peace, honors and gratitude for your support. And everybody that come to this video after I take this video offline, do not forget that just because this video is not live, you can still super chat.
Super chat, support us.
The cash app is still in the chat. You can still cash app us. Just put Let's Think Podcast in the comments. You can still support us. You can still share. You can still like. You can still comment. Support. And we'll continue to bring you the information and support you. And we got other things going on. We're just getting it together.
Islam.
We're just getting it together. But until then, Islam.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.